Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be building a trellis for our tomato plants. I'm going to be doing this as easy as possible. I've tried quite a few different types of trellises and different methods to keep your tomatoes up off of the ground, and this is the best that I've found so far. I went ahead and made some build plans. If you guys are interested, I'll leave the link down in the description below, as well as right here on the screen. You can go check that out on my Etsy shop and purchase those if you'd like. I'm going to start by cutting these 6-foot fence boards down to about an inch wide, and these are going to be perfect because these boards are fairly cheap, plus this trellis doesn't need to be really beefy. This is a nice lightweight material that you can build with, and it will be plenty to support all of the tomato plants you have on it. Once I have all the boards cut out, I'm going to take this down to my garden and start setting this up. Now these fence boards are made out of pressure treated wood, so they will last quite a few years, and you can just leave it out, set up, or tear it down each year and put it back up. It's pretty simple to put together. Now if you don't want to use pressure treated, you could also use the cedar version of these fence boards. Shouldn't be a problem at all. Next, I'm going to take some 1.25" screws and fasten this together. These aren't exterior screws. I would recommend using some exterior ones, but I had these laying around in my shop left over from another project, and it shouldn't really hurt. They just might rust a little bit, but that's perfectly fine. I'm going to screw 2 of these fence boards together and create sort of an A-frame, and I'm screwing about 3 or 4 inches down from the top so I have something to put a ridge pole all the way down. That's what we're going to be tying our strings off to and wrapping the tomato plants around. After assembling all of the A-frames, I'm going to move on to attaching the ridge pole that's going to be supporting the tomato plants, and I thought I could possibly do it all in one piece, but while holding the A-frames up and holding up the ridge pole, it was a little difficult without help. If you have somebody holding it for you, you could easily do the whole ridge pole in one piece, but I'm going to end up taking it apart in 2 or 3 pieces and then reattaching it once it's up on top of the A-frames. I'm going to also take a few of the fence boards and brace the trellis to give it a little bit more stability, because this will just topple right over if you don't have an angle brace going down to the ground. So I'm going to screw those into place. They'll hold the A-frames on the ends temporarily. I'll come back and add in a few more angle braces to really strengthen this up, and then put in a few stakes to fasten it down to the ground so this doesn't just tip over with a strong wind. I'll be using the 1.25" screws to fasten the ridge pole to each of those A-frames. I didn't really have any issue with splitting, but you may want to consider pre-drilling if you're having any issues, especially if the wood you're using has dried out for a longer period of time and is more prone to splitting when you're screwing through such a thin piece of wood. Now that I have the trellis assembled, I'm going to go back in and add in 2 more ankle braces and also put in a few short stakes in the ground and screw those to those braces. This really strengthened up the trellis and kept it from tipping over. The tomato trellis is finished. Now we're going to finish planting the rest of the tomato plants, and then I'll start stringing up our tomato plants to the trellis. The string that I'm using here is a twine, which in hindsight didn't work out so well because a little over halfway through the summer that string started to disintegrate and a few of the tomato plants tipped over before I had a chance to replace the string. I then replaced that twine with some wax coated string, and that lasted a lot better, so I would just make sure that you use a string that will support the weight and won't disintegrate too quickly. With this trellis, it's pretty easy to use, but you do have to sort of train the tomato plant as it continues to grow. You'll have to wrap it around the string, and that will support the tomato growth all the way up to the top, which is about 5 feet from the ground. And once it reaches the top, you can either train it to go along the ridgepole or trim off the top and let a new shoot close to the base grow up, and that be the new plant. With this type of trellis, I'd recommend pruning the tomato plants so that there's one main lead that goes all the way up to the top, and you prune off all the other branches that come out, cut off all the leaves below the tomatoes so that there's a lot of airflow for those new tomatoes to ripen. But if you would like additional shoots coming out of your tomato plants, that's not an issue. You just run additional strings down to support them as they grow up. I'm tying each of these strings off to the top ridgepole, and then I'm loosely tying them to the base of the tomato plant. If your tomato plant is too small when you plant it, you could wait to string it up, or you could put in a stake right beside the tomato plant and tie the string to that, so as it grows up, that will support it, and you can wrap the tomato plant around as it goes up. We just planted these tomatoes and it's really hot outside, so these are starting to wilt, but we're going to water these really good and they will actually bounce back. We're not too worried about it, and I'll show you guys what they look like in just a little bit. Alright, I'm just about finished pruning and wrapping these tomato plants around the strings. It takes a little while to get it set up, but then after this, every once in a while, maybe once every other week, I'll go out and train up the tomato plants. And here you can see this is about halfway through the summer. I believe I just replaced the strings, and most of the tomato plants have already reached the top of the trellis, and I'm starting to trim them off at the top and let new shoots grow up and add additional strings as needed. So that just about finishes up the video for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. If you're interested in those build plans, go check that out down in the description. You can click on that link and that'll take you to my Etsy page where you can purchase those build plans. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.